Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry, and all three of us are professional illustrators. We've all worked for all the major publishers in the business. Together, we've published somewhere around 75 children's books, and we've all taught illustration at university arts schools.
That's right. Each week we come at you guys with fantastic illustrator interviews or questions from people just like you. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you learn something brand spanking new.
I'm not feeling like an argument today.
You don't want to argue?
No, I don't. I just don't feel it today.
No,
that's because you've lost and I've beaten you into submission.
We all want to it's the season of happiness and joy, and we all want to get it along. So I was looking at the day we're recording this is the exact 1 year date to our episode last year. That was the year in review, which means this episode's probably going to come out first week of January or something like, depending on the schedule that we're at. But what's special about this one is we are doing it live with our students at SVSLearn on the new community website. So we've got a chat going on here. People are commenting on what we're doing, and we're reading the chat and whatnot. So it's been really fun having this community up and running and doing these demos and whatnot. And after our discussion today, we're probably going to take one or two questions directly from them. So that's what we're going at today. But I want to first read to you guys what you talked about in 2023. Okay. Mm-hmm. Just to kind of set the stage for where you've been and compare that to 2024. So last year, Lee, you said that you were going to be working on more traditional stuff. That's what you did? Yeah.
Nice.
Let me pull that up here.
I didn't remember saying that.
Yeah. Let me see here.
I tell you, it's funny. Okay. I always encourage.
Got us all on record.
Yeah.
Well, Jake is trying to find that. I'm a big advocate of watching people paint and watching people draw in real life. I mean, there's just something about studying with people. And the big thing that set that off for me, I was painting a little bit traditionally. And I have a lot in the past, obviously, but I was working on my tarot deck in the beginning of 2023. It's all digital. I got to the point where I was just so sick of it. I tried to get Jake and Will to join me to take the watercolor workshop in Chicago with Mark Foley, and they couldn't go, but I went, and that changed everything because it just with 3 days, it just ignited the passion for slinging paint and throwing it down and adjusting in real time, and also not sitting in front of the computer, man. I said it the other day when we were chatting about this issue, but I just don't want 2025. That's my only goal. I don't want to be in front of the computer daily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In my notes from last year, it said you started the year exploring digital watercolor styles, testing techniques, and honing your process. I don't know if you recall that, but you came out with a brush set.
I did, yeah.
And then you signed with a new agent, and you focused on creating a children's book dummy that ultimately didn't sell, but it introduced your work to different editors, other opportunities.
Yeah. So hired and fired all in the same way. I am, like I joked, I'm the drummer from Spinal Tap. If you've ever seen that with agents, I've gone through 5 now. 5. I'm now thinking that maybe it's me.
And then you were big on diversification. So that was the year that you invested in an Airbnb, right? Mm-hmm. So because of the threat of AI, because of a weird economy, you're like, let's diversify here, not have everything resting solely on my art career.
Right.
And then also big thing was getting into the gallery space in Denver as well.
Which I just quit that one, by the way. So
for real?
Yeah.
Okay. What? I also noticed you did you had a co-op workspace too.
I quit that as well.
Okay. For like 2 weeks straight, you're like, you guys, Jake, go find one in your neighborhood. You got to do this.
Everything has a pro and a con. Let me start with that. Everything has a pro and a con. The pro of my workspace, that's where I did my watercolor workshop, by the way, and it was wonderful. And I love that space.
Yeah.
By shifting into doing daily watercolor paintings and leaning into probably doing more gallery stuff this year, I can't lug all my stuff. I don't have a permanent office there.
If you had a permanent office there, it'd be different, right?
Oh my God. If I had a permanent office there, I'd be there daily and happy as a clam.
But why do that when you have an entire space in your own home?
I mean, my studio setup is it's ridiculous. Hold on.
Yeah, you sent a picture to me and Will. He has like scaffolding. It looks like backstage of a Broadway production. There's all these clamps and lights and
this is what I record.
Yeah.
What I record everything with.
So you drug the shelves from the kitchen up there?
Yeah, he's got the shelving units that you'd see in like a cold storage room in a professional kitchen, but he's using that as scaffolding setup to like hang all the cameras and lights on.
It is a crazy setup.
So 2024 really was like, I feel like, and I've heard this a lot from you, it was like Lee White is like, I've got to simplify. I was doing all these other different things, and now it's just like, let's get traditional, let's figure out how to record it, and let's do SVS stuff.
That's right. Trying to simplify, and that's sort of the other reason I quit the gallery and the workspace is that I got to straighten my camera. I just started feeling like I was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to consolidate a little bit. I'm trying to become a good watercolorist.
It's smart. I keep going back to our Benji Davies episode where the dude was just like, I'm just making children's books. I'm just focusing on this one thing, honing my style. I'm not worried about anything else. I'm just doing that. And you and me were just like, why don't we do that? Like, why don't we just, we're always all over the place.
I know. Too much.
We're interested in a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to do this.
Anything else you want to add about your 2024 year?
My 2020, well, part of mine, everything changes. And that's the problem with making plans. And that's what I realized, that you have to be adaptable to change, because it's sort of a domino effect. When one thing changes, it changes a bunch of the other stuff. So one thing, I bought a condo just to, like Jake said, diversify my investments. Well, I went in with my brother. It's always a good idea to do real estate with family, you guys. Say that sarcastically, because you shouldn't do that. Anyway, my brother's not, he's in Tennessee. The condo's in Breckenridge, so he doesn't get to use it. Long story short, he wanted out, and I'm like, I want the condo just by myself. And so I had to, I bought him out, or I'm in the process of buying him out now. Well, the problem with that first domino falls, right?
Yeah.
The next domino it hits is my tarot deck is supposed to launch in March, and I've got a certain amount set aside for advertising. Well, now all that money went to the condo, so I don't have money to advertise the thing. So now I have to move my tarot project back. And so it's all these things that are constantly in flux, and you just have to adapt to them. And that's the thing that I've gotten comfortable with, is being sort of relaxed in a state of chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You like there's a Bruce Lee quote where he's like, you've got to be like water filling a teapot. Right?
Oh, right. You just become the teapot. And yeah.
Takes the shape of whatever vessel it's been poured into.
Exactly.
All right,
but one of the things that I do that you want to stress right before, just last little hit.
Yeah.
I just enjoy teaching. That's one of the things that I've really missed about being in the classroom. It's what I love about our new platform.
Yeah.
And I love doing the workshop. So I'm going to lean into doing live workshops, whether they're digital on our platform or physical at the studios or whatever. There's just nothing like it, getting a bunch of people together. And maybe it's a reaction against AI. I don't know. But getting a bunch of people together and drawing and painting and talking about art, there's not much better than that.
Yep. Until you get bored with it.
That's right. That'll be in 2 months.
No. Holding through, you guys. All right, Will, do you want me to read what you were all about last year?
I'm afraid, but go ahead.
Okay. No, it's you're pretty consistent. So Will continued his self-publishing venture with Pickleball Paul. He sold nearly 1,800 books out of an initial 5,000 print run. Now, I want to point out
18,000. Did you say, or
1,800? Sorry, I wish it was 18,000. I want to point out, if you go back and look at last year's video, how many books were behind Will's head and how many books are behind Will's head now.
That's true.
They're disappearing at a slow rate.
But it's still happening.
It's happening, yeah.
Still happening. And then along with that, school visits proved to be the most lucrative marketing channel, both for selling books and generating income. So it was all about the school visits. Challenges and insights. Will admitted that online sales and Facebook ads didn't perform as well as hoped, prompting him to focus on in-person opportunities and local outreach. And then the same thing as what we're saying with Lee is you're all about the importance of adapting your strategy, staying organized, and just being able to go with the flow. Now that was 2023. 2024 was a big year because I feel like this year was you and the card game.
Yeah.
And it was SVS card game.
Yep.
So, and we've heard all about how that went if you've been to our things. But what would you say were your big takeaways from this year?
One of the big takeaways was that I feel like I was in the sweet spot as far as making a game that is seasonal. So that was a big question mark on, was that a good idea or not?
Yeah. I
really do believe that it is. It'll yet to be proven when we get our games, because I sold, like on the Kickstarter, you can see I've got 175 backers, or I'm sorry, 1,775 backers. But there's a lot that bought multiple games. So we sold over 2,000 games, but we're printing 14,000. And that's how much we believe in the fact that we have generated that huge mailing list. And we have a bunch of stores reaching out to us and stuff. And so we're basically going all in. And I hate to say it because I'm an eternal optimist, but I worry that 14,000 games isn't enough. And I realize that sounds like crazy to say that, right?
That does, man. Like I never ordered 14,000 of anything.
Where'd you get that number?
I just yanked it out of the air because so it's kind of, part of it is like, you have to eventually say enough's enough, right?
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, should I have gotten 16,000? Should I have gotten 20,000? In the end, it's going to be a number that we're going to live with. But right now, we have a mailing list of 1,000 brick and mortar stores that we're going to be sending postcards to on how to order wholesale from us.
Wow. And
they're, toy stores, game stores, gift shops, and there's one other, and I'm drawing a blank on it. Let's see, game stores, toy stores,
Christmas stores.
Yeah, Christmas all year round stores. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's surprisingly, there's 190 Christmas all year round stores that we found. I'm sure there's more. But
I wonder if you did a Halloween game, would Spirit do they take games, or are they just into costumes?
We're going to market to those guys, because we have a Thanksgiving/Halloween game coming out.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on it now.
If you can get the gameplay to actually be fun.
Yeah. And so if we can get that done, we'll forego Kickstarter this time and go direct to printing and then just ship them out. We'll do Facebook ads and just be ready to ship next year, and also try to get them into stores like that. There are actually a lot of seasonal boutique stores that we're finding that have a submission process and everything. And so but you got to get your game first. So we're trying to get the games right now, and our order's in, they're working on it, and they're trying to get it done before Chinese New Year. It is being printed in China, which I know is disappointing to a lot of people for many, many reasons. But at the same time, if you try to do something like this and you realize that it costs more than twice as much to do it here, it really hamstrings you on how much marketing you can afford to do. when you end up paying more than double for your product. So it is what it is. But so that's what I'm doing right now. And the school visit thing, it's funny to hear that come in there because that was going really, really well. And I had to like turn down some school visits to do the game because like right now I'm just too busy with like all the things to do. If I showed you my to-do list, it's daunting. I mean, like, everything from fulfilling the Kickstarter to getting ready to market to stores and to customers next year. All the, like, here's one thing that happened. I hope I'm not going to bore you too much, but I sourced these ornaments. This was one of the add-ons, one of the upsell things for our Kickstarter.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it's a ceramic ornament. Well, so this is my thing. I'm like, I found these, the cheapest I could find them done was for $7, right? Plus the setup fee, plus freight. So more like $9 for each one of these. So we sold them for $15, which I felt like was a lot of money on the Kickstarter, but we had to cover our costs. I go back after the Kickstarter to order these from that company, and now they're $9, which means they're really more like 11 or 12, right? So, yeah. And I had been trying to find a source in China, and everybody in China would go, each company would go, yeah, we can do that. And then they'd send a sample of something completely different. So the language barrier was crazy. Then I'm talking to this company going, will you do like one of these? I get it. One of these is $7, which is now $9. What about if I order 300 of them? And they're like, they wouldn't get back to me. I tried, like, I got to their customer support, left 4 messages. The owner would never. So I'm like, okay, he's basically saying that's his lowest price. But miraculously this week, because of that, them raising their prices, I found a vendor here in Ohio that will do them for $6.
Oh, nice.
So,
wow.
Yeah. And I had been searching. I had one that would do it for $4 stateside here, but you had to order 100 of each one.
Oh,
I just don't need that many. We sold 20 of each one of these, actually sold like 26.
Yeah.
So I don't need 100, So anyway, these are the things that you go through when you're doing all this stuff.
Yeah. It's been cool to watch you this year shift gears. You've always been, since I've known you, super entrepreneurial, but just seeing you very narrow in your focus a little bit more. Every project, you just get a little bit more focus, you get a little bit better at the business side of it. So that's been cool to see.
Well, thanks.
All right, my turn. So in 2023,
you have notes on Jake?
Yeah, I have notes on me. So last year, it was a balance between freelance work and personal projects. So I worked on Disney card illustrations, like Lorcana cards, Star Wars cards. I worked on an animation project for a studio for a couple months, which was really cool. And then I launched my Spaceships Kickstarter. And then none of us mentioned this, but all 3 of us buckled down and created Self-Publishing Pro this last year in 2024, which was the focus really this year for us was let's make a new course for SVSLearn, and let's change this platform that we're on into one cohesive thing. So that really, in my 2023, it was like SVS was like, yeah, we're doing it, we're running our things. It was sort of in automation mode. And in 2024, it was like, okay, now let's get into deliberate work on this mode, and let's level this whole system up, and let's create a thing that really leverages our understanding of self-publishing and put that together. Like I said, in 2023, I launched the Robots Kickstarter. 2024 was the year I delivered that book and like finished making it. And so this year was SVS delivering the Robots book and starting the graphic novel project that I've been doing for Scholastic for the last 6 months. And that's pretty much what this year has been. My big takeaways from this year was really I think it is. There's a value in simplification, kind of like what Lee was saying, is that because it was just this graphic novel for the last half of the year, it was just graphic novel and SVS. My to-do list went like from being scattered and crazy to being just, okay, every week, what do I got to focus? What do I got to do for SVS? What do I got to do for the graphic novel? And that's been kind of somewhat liberating because my days are a little bit more focused and less like all over the place. So I would say my advice to people would be never underestimate the power of one project and seeing it through to final, right? And ideally, what I would have loved to have done if I was in a position to do so, this project that fell in my lap, it didn't really fall in my lap. I worked hard to get this project, this graphic novel project. Ideally, that thing would have happened separate from launching the new community for SVSLearn, but because I would have loved to give everything to SVS and not have to worry about the graphic novel or vice versa. But I think I was able to manage both of these okay. I'm still a little bit behind on that graphic novel because I have like 50 pages left by the end of the year.
Jake's going to be famous. It's a big project, right? I mean, in terms of its visibility and its recognition and.
Yeah. It's, I guess the cat's sort of out of the bag. The publisher sort of slipped up and Barnes and Noble posted information about the book, even though the publisher hasn't announced it yet. But I'm doing a book for the Wings of Fire property, or the Wings of Fire series, I guess, which is just I'm amazed. I've always been aware of these books, never got into them. Now I'm into it, and just amazed at the loyal fan base that they have, the rich world building that's going on in that world. Amazon is working on a TV series, animated series for these books, so I'm really excited to be a part of it, and excited to have the world see my contribution to this this thing. So,
I was going to ask you guys. Jake, you said you'd rather have focused on the graphic novel, then put that away, put that to bed, then focus on SVS, put that to bed, do the next thing. Have you guys noticed, and you're a runner, right, Jake? You still run?
Yeah.
Have you noticed, I ride bikes a lot, and so if I'm on a bike ride, I'll notice there'll be a car coming and someone walking their dog, for example, and I'm on my bike, and there's no one else around. All three of us pass at the same time. Like together.
Yeah.
And then you got to like tuck in or go around or something. It's really awkward.
It's a glitch in the matrix. It's a glitch.
It's weird, but that's the way that I see work happening too. It's like you want things to be isolated, but it's weird how they all come together at the same time. Like that full gallery show that I did, the solo gallery show, my workshop and Japan all landed within 2 weeks of each other. And I wanted those to all be separate. But it's just weird that it just happens overnight. Is it because we're over scheduling and there's nowhere else for it to fit? Or is that just what happens in life and you just got to deal with it? Is there a way around that? I guess is my question.
I think with this graphic novel, I got the deal for it at the same time that we were like, hey, we should really take serious, revamping this whole SVS. So we started talking about that in spring of this year, right?
Yeah.
And that's when this book deal came. And so I was like, well, you eat when dinner's served, right? You don't say to them, can we hold off 6 months? And they're like, fine, we'll go get another artist, right? So I said yes to the book project. And then we really started going down this road with the website. And this website thing, I feel like, and you can ask Austin and Lisa and everybody else who's helped on it, it was one of those things where the road got steeper and steeper the higher you go up. To the very point of launch of the new community, The amount of time and work and problems that were happening were almost insurmountable. And so that was just something. How could you plan for that? How could you, you don't know what you're going to encounter until you encounter it, I think, right, in that particular thing. So I think it's funny too. Like, I have looked at the traditional Marvel Dark Horse Image Comics as like, oh man, that is where it's at. Those comics are like, that's what I can truly call myself a comic artist when I work on those things. That was my old mindset. When I realized how many copies like the kids graphic novels sell, and where they're selling in multiple six-figure ranges as far as distribution, I was like, holy cow, you could work on one of those books and sell way more copies than if you worked on Aquaman, or something. Unless you're doing one of the Batman books. I don't even know if those, there's a handful of like top performing books, but for the most part, a lot of those comics don't sell in those kinds of numbers. They're at the 30,000 range, 10,000 range, something like that. So anyway, 2025 going into this next year, I think we all sort of have our heads on pretty straight. It's like we're focusing on SVS community, and then we're doing whatever we're going to do to keep our sort of creative energies alive and going. And I think that's I don't know, it's good enough for our year in review, right?
Pretty good.
Okay.
Well on it. We'll reassess it next year.
Yeah. We got one question, and then we'll take it out with that. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Sure.
Okay. Chris asks, how do you write an author-illustrator query? Are there do's and don'ts? Okay. So an author-illustrator query, for those of you who are wondering what exactly that is, that's when you go to a publisher and say, listen, I'm an author-illustrator. I have this idea for a book. Will you publish it? That's essentially what it is. So what are the do's and don'ts with those, you guys?
One of the new do's that has changed over the past 2 years with that is, before, an author illustrator submission could be a little bit looser in the sketches. I think that only exists now if you've already worked with a publisher many times, not just once. You can probably submit some loose and kind of a general idea of a story. Things have to be more polished now to be accepted, from my understanding. And so what used to be a semi-rough sketch now has to be a clean sketch.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, because they want to, this is really what we get into. Chris, I don't know, have you taken Children's Book Pro or not?
I think he was in Children's Book Pro.
Yeah. I feel like we got into that towards the last couple of weeks, where we were talking about how do you get an agent? How do you focus on, breaking into publishing and whatnot? So next time we launch Children's Book Pro in February, I think.
February, yeah.
If this is at all something you guys are interested in, you're definitely going to want to take that course.
Oh, Chris says not yet. I could have sworn that he took it. But yeah, we go, and that's sort of, not to be cheesy and pitch the pro classes, but that's sort of why we leaned into everything we're doing at SVS, because we want the foundation to be so solid that when you're done with it, you're like, okay, what do I want to apply this to? And then the pro series, we do a deep dive. I mean, it is so deep into building a children's book, authoring a children's book, not necessarily the writing, but sort of making images that are narrative in nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say another do is you really have to, you have to have your pitch just has, like, your story idea has to be good, and it has to be something that they haven't seen before, or if they have seen it before, done in a way that hasn't been done before, which is kind of the same thing, right?
It's you're an inventor,
right?
And I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is. Like if you came up with a drain stopper that was rubber, right? But your drain stopper looked different than all the other ones. I think what would happen is the manufacturers or stores would go, we already have rubber drain stoppers, right? Like those have been done a long time ago. But so many children's book authors write a story, like about a monster under a bed or something that's just so similar to stuff that's already been done, but they don't think about how original and how important it is.
So you've heard of Grumpy Monkey. It's spawned like a whole series of books, right? So what sets this apart? The initial idea is like, I want to do a book about emotions and how to deal with anger, right? So that right there all of a sudden piques the interest of the publisher, because they're like, okay, yeah, we know how to market and publish books about emotions, and those are always sort of perennial. Teachers are always looking for it, parents are always looking for it, because nobody knows how to parent a kid. and if a book can help you get a kid to understand when it's okay to be angry and when it's not okay to be angry, yeah, let's do it. Okay, so how do you set your anger management book apart from everybody else? So this guy, if you look at the style, we got beautiful colors. We've got a really interesting, almost like a Cartoon Network take on these characters. If I could get in here a little bit closer, they're really stylized and fun looking, and every page is very captivating, right? You just look at everything, you're like, oh, this is something cool and interesting, right? So, and just look at the funny expressions and whatnot. So it's like, this is the full package, right? Like, you come to them, you've got a fun idea, you've got a unique style, and you basically have to, the biggest do is make it look like you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we do the Children's Book Pro class. We put the pro in the Illustrator, because even though you may have not been paid for your work yet, you're bringing professionalism to it that you didn't know how to do before. And in that course, we go through character design, specifically for children's books, environment design, how to lay out a page, how to tell a story from page to page, how to do a page turn.
Yeah, how to control time. How do you speed time up? How do you slow time down in terms of how people read the story? I mean, there's so many nuanced sort of techniques.
Yeah. So Chris says, so watching Shark Tank might help. It wouldn't hurt. I mean, if you look at how solid those guys, their pitches are. You guys watched Shark Tank before, at least clips of it. The show is so fun, because you're like, every sort of thing that they're people are shilling on there are either something that has been done before, but in a way you've never seen it, or, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. So like, I saw this one where the guy was like, we're selling reading glasses. You can get reading glasses for like $1 at Walgreens, right? So why would you invest in a reading glass company? Well, his idea was they wrap around your wrist, super easy, and you just take them with you when you're out grocery shopping or whatever. And you're always in a situation when you're 40 plus or whatever, where
I need that product. I did not know that was a product.
Okay, well, you can't read, the ingredients on something at the grocery store. Right. And you're like, shoot, I forgot my glasses. Well, they're right here on your wrist. You just pull them off.
So why not the leash,
because
around your
that's
neck.
been done before. And this, a leash looks like an old grandpa, but a clip on your wrist makes you look cool, right? And so what's funny about that one too is the reveal of who's pitching it. Turns out it's a father and a son, and the father, they're like, okay, they invested something like $500,000 into the business already.
Wow.
And they're like, where did this money come from? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm the guy that created Gorilla Glue. The stuff that has sold, in every Home Depot,
right?
For whatever. And they're like, oh, well, why do you need our money? And he's like, that was the obvious next question.
Because I want to be on Shark Tank to get free publicity.
No, he said, really, it's this. The guy's like, late 60s, early 70s. And his son is the one that's kind of running the company. And he's like, listen, you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And I'm not going to be here to help him out with this business. And I want to make sure he's in good hands.
Uh-oh.
And I know you guys know what you're doing. And everybody was just like, oh,
Wow.
I want to be, I want to me. So that said, Chris, in pitching your books, I would honestly, you would do yourself a good favor, not just to watch Shark Tank, but to read 100 children's books and analyze them. What made this book work? What made this book work for my kid? Why did my kid get bored halfway through this book? And how come my kid doesn't want to read this book anymore, but keeps asking me to read this book? And you just kind of absorb all of that. You go take Children's Book Pro, and then you put together a professional pitch, and then you're going to
look at the discount children's books at Barnes & Noble. Mm-hmm. Why are they on the discount table? Mm-hmm. Why can't they sell them at full price?
One thing, I see it a lot with people who are going into author-illustrator mode is that they come at childhood from an adult perspective. And what that adult perspective tends to be is kids are happy all the time. They like cookies and they're happy, and they're sometimes sad if it rains, but then they're happy again because the sun came out. It's just really wanting to project children as this sort of one-dimensional character. But we all know that kids have maybe even a heightened sense of all the emotions: jealousy, rage, laziness, too much energy, all that stuff. And so keying into real emotion that kids have versus the adult idealized version of that kids should just be happy and kids just like flying kites is something that you can bank on, like to treat them like they have real meaningful emotions and not just giving them sort of a gloss of nostalgic childhood, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. All right. I think there was one more really quick one.
Oh, Pamela's asking, I shut down the Q&A. Yeah. Oh yeah. Pamela's asking, am I going to self-publish my book this year? This year, I don't know. I mean, we were talking about that obviously with the year in review and what's coming up. The big things that I'm probably going to be working on this year is finishing the tarot deck. I know I'm going to do that. And then putting together Watercolor Pro. So a 10-week watercolor class. And then possibly doing Illustration Pro with David Hone. So those things are the stuff that's in the works. We'll see what happens. But after I've got a children's book that I absolutely love that I just there's not enough hours in the day for me to get to it. Maybe 2026.
Cool. All right. Should we wrap it up?
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Self-publishing. Where did I come up with self? 3-Point Perspective is made possible by SVSLearn.com, where becoming a great illustrator starts. We should change that to become the illustrator you've always wanted to be at SVSLearn.com. We've got a brand new community that is hopping. It is so chill and exciting.
We've got a bunch of those people here with us right now on this podcast.
We got 25 of them joining us here in the studio live today, and we love you guys, and we're glad you're here. Thank you for all the awesome, just fun chat that was happening during this. If you want to be in on our next live episode, we're doing one a month. Come join the studio. Join the SVS Learn studio. We call it the Illustration Studio, where our studio members get weekly office hours where they can come ask any question. They can join the podcast live
demos.
You can watch the live demos, and the demos have been, as the kids say, fire. I guess those kids now are 20, so steez. I don't know what
our demos have the steez.
Yeah,
right?
Sigma demos is what's going on here. Oh boy, they're gonna take away our podcasting license. All right, your hosts are Will Terry, Lee White, and I'm Jake Parker. Podcast produced by Daniel Tu, that's Daniel T-U, and special thanks to the SVS team manager Preston Smith, our keeper of curriculum Austin Shirtliff, and we should ask the community transfer up and runner Austin Shirtliff, our show notes wrangler Lily Howell, our chief operations officer Lisa Fott, also key component in getting the community up and running. our illustrator, Annalise Black. And that is it. Now, go draw something. All right, you guys, you got to join a live podcast. You got to see how the
You got
sausage
to waste some of your day. With
And we
even
gave
got to
them
be
the
there.
actual real OG experience by having a huge technical problem. Then Will was late.
Yeah, yeah. This is like
you know what it was? When I looked at the time, I realized, because I looked at it again,
Mhm.
I thought it was saying 2 Pacific, 3 Mountain, but it was 2 to 3 Mountain.
Right.
When I looked at it last night, I'm like, I don't want to mess this up.
So by not wanting to mess it up, you
Messed it
overthunk
up.
it.
Yeah.
You-
It was late. It was like 11 o'clock last night when I'm like, when is this going? We don't
That's what I
care,
figured.
Chris. Chris is like, you're still recording. We'll
Yeah.
either put this on as banter at the end or
We'll see.
they'll cut it.
Daniel's
Daniel-
he's gonna edit out the beginning where
Daniel's actually the probably the MVP of SVS because he has to make these judicial decisions on what gets cut and what stays.
which essentially is
I don't even know.
keeps everything.
Can you even stop the recording and keep the stream going at the same time? I don't know how to do that.
No, it records the whole thing.
Right. That's what I thought.
So when you watch the Samantha says, "We'll save my butt." We were going to bring her in
Oh,
because she was here, and we're like,
So,
"Sam, do you
Samantha,
want to
this was
join
the-
us?"
I
We're
would
like,
rather have.
"Sure."
this I know. Samantha, this was a setup to see how willing you were, and you
She passed the test. She was
Yep.
willing. They also got to see me worrying that you were in a car accident. Will, that's what I figured. If
The
he's not
first
answering his
go-to
phone,
was
You know
car
what?
accident.
It was 80. It's like 82 degrees out there, and I was like, I got to go for a bike ride.
sunshine.
I've
Mhm.
got to go for a bike ride, and I didn't take my phone.
No, why would you? Right? There's no
Does-
reason to.
Well, I was going to be back in plenty of time because it starts at 3, right?
And so you came back unshowered, hopped right in.
I'm
There we
still
go.
a mess right now, but I'm here.
Well, good job. Good job, Will. All right. Should we wrap it up in the stream?
Yeah.
Wrap it.
Should we do another closing, like another
Oh, we already wrapped it up.
SVS
Yeah,
has been brought to you by?
No, we did it all.
You could do it again.
We'll just see you guys tomorrow at Anthony's demo in the
Okay,
morning.
cool.
So
That's tomorrow morning at 10
Yeah.
Pacific.
right, and
11
if you
and
and he said bring your art supplies. He wants you to draw with them.
Oh,
Okay. So get ready for that.
nice.
So we're not
All
telling a story this time.
No stories.
No story. No
I
time.
guess not.
Okay.
All right.
All right, you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
First things first, that episode we talked about AI and what we thought it was going to do in 2024. How I don't know that we prognosticated on that, but we did kind of said it's definitely something to watch and to look at. So I want to ask you guys really quick, just to put a button on that particular topic, since it was sort of a reoccurring theme the last 2 years, we touched upon it. And I noticed we haven't been talking about it as much lately. What do you think the state of AI is, and why have we not talked about it as much? And where do you feel like it's headed in relation to artists and art making?
I don't know. I think at a certain point, you can't operate at a level 10 fear factor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
sort of how it came out of the gate. Remember when all of a sudden early last year, it was like, oh, this is pretty good. Like it's better than we thought it was going to be real quick. And everybody's like, okay, illustration is now over. I need to learn how to do something else. You know, I mean, that was what the conversations I was seeing.
Yeah.
But everybody kept working. And then just like every single tool, we heard the same thing about Photoshop a long time ago. Everybody just settled in, did their work. Yeah, it's changed a few things and a couple of questionable choices by some big publications to use it. But overall, sort of I guess it's weird to say, oh, it's no big issue, because it is a big issue. But in my daily life, it's not an issue at all.
Mm-hmm. Will, did you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I see it all the time being used by brand new authors that are self-publishing,
Mm-hmm.
and I see it. There's a podcast. It's not a podcast. It's this storytelling YouTube channel called Mr. Ballin. I don't know. I would love to see in the chat if anybody listens to him.
He's been using it.
Yeah, like crazy. Which is disappointing.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
something he admitted to, or you can just
no, you can just tell. Like you can see like all of a sudden his visual game got upped by 200%.
You mean using the art for like instead of clip art,
like
he's using
as images in the story.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
I have a hot take on that, by the way. But
I would say, for me, it doesn't bother me that much because of what I'm doing. However, we've talked, the three of us, and I'd say if I were a brand new illustrator coming up right now, it would concern me a lot more than it does me now, because I'm doing self-published projects where I'm just moving forward. I'm just doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where a lot of people have been confused with our attitude, because we're like, look, our main message is like, don't get too down. Don't get too depressed. Don't focus all your energy on this thing that you really, what we're saying is you really can't change it. Now, I realize that a lot of artists are going, yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can put the genie back in the bottle. We can do it. If we all band together, we can put the genie back in the bottle. Personally, right. I don't think we can, but that's just me. I'm one opinion. I just don't think we can. And the reason I don't think we can is because I've had this experience before in my lifetime with stock illustration. We tried to put the genie back in the bottle and we failed miserably.
Yeah.
And stock illustration went on anyway. Now people can say, well, that's two different things. And you're right. It is two different things. But to me, they're very similar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what I was going to say about Mr. Ballin is that might be the actual best use for AI image making is he wasn't hiring illustrators and photographers to like make beautiful images for his YouTube videos that he's spending,
But let me play the devil's advocate on that.
Yeah.
And talk back. I'll be the voice of some of our students.
Let me just finish that thought though.
Okay.
Like he wasn't doing, nobody lost a job because Mr. Ballin started using AI imagery for his videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it's done is it's helped that particular sort of informational video type of thing just be something that's a little bit more easier to consume because there's an image that goes right along with the words they're saying. And if you're a visual learner, it like helps everything work together a little bit better. So there's that. This is setting aside that the energy costs for all the AI and all of the resources that are going into it, and the fact that the AI were trained on stolen artwork and stolen images and photography and all that stuff. So all that stuff bad. But in this case, I'm just saying nobody lost an art job from him using it in that case. Okay, devil's advocate.
So I would say I would combat that with, you already mentioned it, stolen imagery. It's not fair. And then I would also say, well, there's always new clients coming into the market that weren't there, like an up and coming publisher who didn't use illustration because they hadn't started their company yet. And now that they have, in the past, they would have had to have gone to illustrators. And now that they have the option to go to AI, they're going there because, it's like free basically compared to the other. And so they should have to pay like everyone else. They should have to hire us.
Right.
I'm reading I want to know what you guys think.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, what I've noticed this last year is that the public itself has started to be a little more in tune and aware of when these images are being used, and they can catch it. Like it used to be that I'd have to be like, look at this, to like people around me who didn't have like an artist trained eye. Look at this is AI. And they're like, no way. Tell me, how do you know? I'm like, well, look at all these little AI artifacts around it. Look how these, hairs don't grow out and then grow back together. stuff like that, right? But now they're able to grab it and grasp it, and I think there's a subset of the population that's like knows that it's low quality, even though it looks polished. They know like this is just someone, phoning it in. So there's that aspect of it.
But I have little faith that the average person can even tell the difference. And the reason I say that is because people often will see an illustration and go, "Hey, I think I saw your illustration the other day." Right. And when they show me, it's like, to me, it looks nothing like what I do, but because so I think there's a big segment of the general population that, they don't even know they're looking at illustration. They're like, they don't even think about it. They don't even know someone does it. If you tell someone you're an illustrator, they're like, "What's that?" Like, "Oh, and then they'll say, I never even thought about it, that someone actually draws the pictures in children's picture books." Like, we don't even think of it. Right. Now, I realize that's, I don't know what percentage of the population, but there is a percentage that is that naive. Yeah.
Austin has a good comment. He says, "I know an author who used it for his indie published book cover instead of hiring an illustrator. Many of the authors I know who indie published would be very offended at the idea of an illustrator writing a book using AI, but don't mind using it to make their covers."
Right.
So it's essentially, I would, if I needed a sound track to go with an animation I made or a YouTube video I made, would I be okay using AI to just fill in for the sound? Yeah, maybe. Who knows, right? Instead of hiring a composer to make something. However, a musician would be like, "What? Heck no, not on my watch. You're not going to use AI to do music,
Right.
Meanwhile, they might have no problem having AI design their album cover.
Right.
Right.
And I want to guarantee all of you guys that there are people holding the pitchforks and fighting the good fight for, let's down with AI art, that are using it in their work. I guarantee it.
Why do you say that?
Because it's such a powerful tool to speed things up that people are going to like say, "Hey, AI, make a background," and they're going to make all kinds of descriptions. They're going to get that background and they're going to draw from it as reference, and they're going to have no problem using that and not feel bad about it. And personally, I'm not saying they should feel bad about it. I'm just saying I know this is happening where people are going to be using it, but they can hide their digital tracks so well that that you'll never know, and they'll be fighting the fight along with you. Like, yeah, down with AI.
Well,
and stuff.
The other morning, Lee accused me of using AI on my graphic novel because I'm finishing it so fast. I'm like, no.
Well, you gotta admit, when you're doing that many pages, that's impressive. But we did see you do 20 robot designs last night and then do 4 poses of that same robot, including adding all the detail in under an hour. So not bad.
I understand. Because my answer to him is like, I don't have time to use AI. I've got to work faster than that. Because if you've ever messed with Midjourney or anything, you're just sitting there massaging and prompting and like to tweak it. I went in there, rolled up my sleeves, and let's really see if you can do my job, Midjourney. I want to know for sure. And it took me hours to do something that I could have done, I take that back. It took me hours to get it to do the thing I wanted it to do, and at that stage, it would take me hours to replicate the same sort of illustration, but all the joy was taken out of the creation. Right.
That's one thing about it, is that I don't know. There's some people are in it for the final, like, okay, I don't care how I got to this image, but here it is. But I don't think most artists are like that. I think there's a part of the process that is, it's part of us, and you take us out of that, and all of a sudden it's, that's the reason I don't think AI has much weight, because the artists don't really feel it. And then I just don't think anybody cares. I think the people that are making AI art don't have the ability to produce something for the most part. There will be a small group of them. I've seen them on Etsy actually, where they're like, hey, you can download some images and make it into your own calendar. You got to print it on your own printer. But here's 400 little cottages that you can pick. And it's totally AI.
Yeah.
And they're selling. It's like $5 a piece. Yeah. And I guess you print them themselves. I don't know who would ever do that, but that's the small market. I just don't see where it's going to land, except for commercial illustration that where not a lot is riding on it. And say, for example, a magazine feature, like if it was something on like the benefits of coffee in the morning, those are the images where people are going to use AI, because all you need is like a cup of coffee, a fire behind it, or, whatever it's going to be. But for books and things like that, where, hey, people aren't going to buy it unless it's right. I don't know. I just don't see it displacing too much.
There's some good comments in the comment section. Laura says, isn't it like any reference? If you're married to it, you can usually tell. I think so.
Totally.
I think a lot of people will use it successfully as reference. And like I said, you'll never know. So there might be some people that you really admire their work, and come to find out, and you probably never will, but they're using AI as reference on the low end scale of using AI.
It's not a mystery. Fast forward from beginning of 2023 to now. If I could just turn my camera to my setup, I am documenting everything I'm making in real time, and I'm sharing that process because I realize there's a process that we want to be a part of, and also to fight the battle. Like, you just post a finished image I'm a pretty fast painter like Jake is, and I can do a lot of finished images. So I could see somebody saying, hey, that's AI. Well, not if I've got me recorded making all of it.
Yeah.
So that's not an accident.
Chris says he couldn't get it to mimic his art style at all. It was ridiculous looking. My son tried to make art in my style. And while it had a few things that to me looked kind of like what I would do, overall, it was like the candy apple, like crazy, over rendered.
It tends to go that way. It almost interprets like if you enter in the prompt, there's a couple of hidden prompts, and that's super detailed, creepy sci-fi.
Yeah.
It just wants to go that way.
There's a part of me that thinks that it will get better and better, and why wouldn't it? So
it will.
There is a concern. My thing is, I just don't think that there's one, if you can't do something, if you can't change something, to me, it's just a waste of energy to try. And two, there's so many things that you can do, that, and our the people that we talk to at SVSLearn.com that are either taking our classes or that have been with us for a while, or they're just podcast listeners. Everybody kind of comes to art for different reasons too. Like some people just want to make art. Some people want to make a living with their art. Some people just want to get better at their craft, and maybe they'll make a living at it someday later. So I don't know. Like, I don't see big publishers like right now. They're having you sign contracts that where you promise that you're not using it. So does YouTube. Yeah. YouTube is like, if this is and on Amazon as well. Like when you upload a book to Amazon, you have to click a box right now that says, I like under penalty of perjury or blah blah blah, legalese, I promise that none of this was generated with AI, or some of this or all of this content was created with AI. Oh. And you get like, I can't imagine you're not kind of in a blacklisted area on the listings. Like, they're not going to prioritize AI created stuff over human created stuff, at least not right now.
Do you think people are checking that box though? I mean, that's sort of an honor system. That why in the world would somebody check that?
Like, I don't know how they could prove, but I mean, like Amazon can take your site, your store down for any reason that they deem, and they can just say tough, so I don't think they have to prove that you were using AI to take you down.
Man, the chats on fire right now. I just want to read a couple comments. Austin says, I've come to realize that my biggest thing about AI is that I believe one of the fundamental aspects of human beings is the ability and responsibility to create. Using tools to help with the process is fine, but not replacing the act of creating.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pamela says, and I totally agree with Austin, and I love Pamela's, what she says here. She says, I think there'll be a bit of a revival of more tactile craft, like Samantha's 3D. Mm-hmm. I'm leaning into that in my own work too. So Samantha, she's our other host.
Samantha Cotterill, yeah.
Cotterill. And if you guys haven't seen it, like she does this really cool cut paper crafting where she makes illustrations out of like 3D models, and not computer 3D models, but like paper craft 3D models. So that's super cool.
I think she's right about that, in that, look at what happened when synthesized music came out.
Mm-hmm.
What was the next movement? It was the unplugged, the MTV Unplugged, right?
Well, that's why I'm switching to the watercolor stuff too.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'd like to ask you guys, where do you, just personally, where have you drawn the line for AI, and do you use it as any part of your workflow? For me, I don't see the difference between how I would use AI. I don't actually type anything in, but I just go there to watch the almost like Pinterest, because I think what AI has gotten right, I think there's always that creepy element if you look too close at the image itself. But if I were to blur the image, for example, or squint like we were talking about in the demo earlier today, the two things it's gotten right is it's fantastic at lighting.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. I mean, like, especially lights that are in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes tough to picture how a light would work. Like if it's sunset, so it's not night, but there is daylight around, but you have a item that's casting a light that's in the image, like a lantern or something. It's so good at that. And then the other thing is color balance. It's come up with some really interesting, in my opinion, color combinations that I will just steal straight up. And it's no different than how I steal on Instagram or Pinterest. If I see color that I like, I take it. Yeah,
where you're like, oh, I like this shade of blue overall, and then that little pop of like vermilion,
red or something. Exactly.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. In a way, you're using it like reference, like
just like Pinterest. It's no different to me than Pinterest.
And in the past, I've done this thing where I'm like, I'll be doing an illustration. It's like the two characters need to, one guy is they're like embracing or hugging or whatever. So I'll go and do stock footage of, people hugging, right? And I'll find, okay, here's a picture of someone hugging, and I'll just use that as reference. Well, with AI, I might use stock footage also to find like what's the most common denominator image representing this particular thing. Like you might pick somebody getting fired. How do you show somebody getting fired from a job? Well, the stock image photographers had to do that 1,000 times over, and so there's thousands of photos on there of someone getting fired, and it's usually like someone walking away with a box, and it's somebody yelling at them or something like that, right? And AI does sort of the same thing, because all of these images have been fed into it. You could type into it, what is the most interesting coral reef look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll give you, like, judging by the words you gave me, I'll show you what a coral reef would look like. Now, you could go search Google Images and find something, or you could use AI. And I think, you're probably better off getting an idea of what you want just by searching from, using search terms, or for Pete's sake, getting a book on coral reefs or stuff like that. But sometimes in a pitch, when you don't have time, it might serve you well to just type in the prompt and be like, okay, what does something like this look like? So I can get the lowest common denominator understanding of it. And then you can apply your creativity to that as you do the drawing yourself. I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about AI. So,
it's boring.
Yeah. So let's just we'll cut it off right there, and we'll just say, I think compared to last year, AI tools have gotten more powerful, but I think public acceptance of it is still on the fence, right? Even though Coca-Cola made an entire commercial using it, which I think is it's an ugliest commercial I've ever seen. But